Welcome back to another day at the easel, painting an icon of Martha and Mary of Bethany. Yesterday I painted the form, the sketches of Martha and Mary on the panel, and we're now ready to paint some colour. So let's get started. So let's start by mixing some Terra Rossa and making it quite dilute. And I'm using this as what's called a Sankia, so it's the background shading in the faces and the hands. It will need multiple layers. And we're using a number 3 Kolinsky brush. So the flesh tones, as is very often the way with me, is golden ochre, Ercolano red, a tiny bit, and a very little bit of terra verte. And this will need a bit of titanium white because the Sankia, the red background, is not dark, and unless it has a bit of help here with the titanium white, we won't see any difference at all. The titanium white in the highlights tends to make the face look a little washed out and needs some chroma, some saturation put back into the colour, and so a dilute glaze of golden ochre fixes that. using some very small brushes. I've got two very small brushes. One is from Rosemary Kalinsky brush from the UK, and it's a 0, but my smaller brush, which incidentally is a number 1, is a Russian Kalinsky, a Rubloff brush. So using burnt umber to put in, or to accentuate the details of the face and hands. So using these very fine brushes to put some more highlight back in. Once that glaze went in, they could afford a little bit more white. So using the very lightest of the highlights for the whites of the eyes, on one side only. And we use Herculano Red to put in the blushes to around the cheeks, getting the lips, a bit around the eyes as well. Just gives it all a bit of a lift. In preparation for blocking in the folds of the clothing, we need to have stronger shadows so that we can see where these clothes are going. Not only the main part that accentuate the differences, the folds, but we need to be putting in quite a bit of shading as well, quite heavy shading, particularly underneath clothing, so that those clothes that come out on top will be lighter. And then start to block in, first of all, Martha's outer garment, which is orange, Mars orange. And Mary's outer garment will be blue. It's ultramarine blue, but knocked back somewhat with burnt umber. Take some of the very glary brightness out of it. Makes it quite a nice subdued blue. And these two coloured garments go well together because orange and blue are complementary colours. They're on the opposite sides of the colour wheel, which makes them work really well together. The undergarments will be made very light, pretty much so that they look as if they are white garments. However, the shading on Mary, who has blue as her outside garment, the shading underneath her inside garment will be orange, and vice versa on Martha, so there'll be the blue. But one of the things I'm mixing it with to lighten it up, to lighten that shading up, is a new titanium pigment that I have recently found at Langridge in St Luke's, is titanium grey. So experimenting with that a bit, see how that goes. Using a number of different brushes in this exercise, we're using sort of a small flat Kalinsky brush, which gives sort of good coverage, and there's a fatter one that's about a number 14. But I'm also trying out a new brush recently purchased, a squirrel. It's much softer than the Kolinsky. And I anticipate using this a good deal more in the highlights. So that's it for now. We've blocked in the main colours, finished the faces pretty much. We might have to come back and look at those a little later on. But for now, they're pretty much done. And next time it will be highlight time for the clothing. And that little jar that Martha's holding and that little scroll that Mary is holding. And I'd love to hear from you. If you've got comments, you put a like in the button underneath, but do share your comments, your questions. Get some conversations going. That'd be fun. Bye for now.